Good evening, everyone. We are going to be doing Genesis 27 and 28 tonight. Give a couple minutes for everyone to get on. Since I said we'd start at 9:30, we're a couple minutes early. I'm kind of taking a step back online from a lot of the things that are going around. Um, just There's just so much information coming at us. Hey, Brian, and I've got my opinions, I got my beliefs on things, but a lot of people not really in a position to talk about it or to hear, and so took a step back today and actually got a lot done. Yes, I know, Stephen. Welcome aboard, though. That's why we haven't actually started reading yet. But I'm getting a lot of work done, and just got some interesting news from the schools today. Seems like we're going to be doing some online options, learning opportunities, but nothing's going to be graded. And I've got a bunch of seniors, so that's interesting. Having a bunch of seniors who hear nothing's going to be graded means there's not anything going to be done. But I will certainly be available for facilitating and answering questions. Might be a good time for some of my students to even, if they have questions they've been wanting to ask that aren't necessarily directly related to math or physics, maybe they'll ask those questions and we can have some real learning and some good conversations going on instead of the government indoctrination type stuff. So, but anyway, I'm kind of excited, and I think stepping back was a pretty good idea. So I'm just gonna be doing these, and then that's about it. So, anyways, 9:30. So let's get started. It's, Genesis 27 and 28 tonight. Going to be reading out of the King James. Have the English Standard up. Part of the reason I'm using the English Standard is because it's pretty good in terms of reading, and for me, I'm kind of testing it. Like I've read the NASB, I've read Revised Standard, American Standard, like a lot of different translations over the years. None of them have just really stuck with me, but there's a few passages in the ESV that I've read that I've really liked. 1 Peter 3:21 is definitely one that stands out. So I'm giving the ESV a real go, kind of doing some verse by verse here, and so far I'm liking it. So that's why I have it. That's why I've chosen the ESV. Is it's kind of a test run for me to read it when I'm preparing for these and stuff. I also have the Hebrew out so that I can reference some of the words, and we're probably going to do just 2 chapters tonight. This is the last major chapter with Isaac in it. He actually doesn't die until chapter 35, but we're going to shift from 27 to 28. We're going to shift point of view to Jacob now. So Isaac's going to have his last major role here, and then he moves into a supporting role where he's mentioned a couple of times, but then we won't really have anything until 35 when he passes away. So yeah, I agree, Stephen. So far the reading has been easy, nice, and I think there's been a couple of times in the distant past where I've encountered a problem, but I can't remember what they are, and so I'd have to look again and see what those are, if they were major issues or just minor things. So, but anyway, we're here in chapter 27, and I'm going to start here in verse 1. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. So this verse calls Isaac old. Now, remember, Abraham was old. He was old when he was 99 and 100, talking about, hey, Mom, welcome aboard, talking about having Isaac. And so we're here talking about Isaac being old. In fact, he's so old that his eyesight's not great, and he can't really see the difference between Esau and Jacob at this point. But he's going to live for quite a while longer, so much so that Jacob is going to get married and have kids before Isaac passes away. So, just because you're old doesn't mean you're down and out. So, good old Romans 10, 9, and 10 is a flop, but not a total disqualifier. I don't understand. Oh, you're talking about ESV. Yeah, I'll have to check that out then. Thanks. So yeah, sorry, Stephen. My mind has already shifted into Genesis, so it took me a second to recognize your context. But anyway, so Isaac is old, but he actually lives longer than Abraham. Abraham, remember, passed away at 175. Isaac lives to be 180, and so he even though he's considered old here, it's more of a term of his physical frailness, the way that he is, because consider that 180 is not old for somebody before the flood. So what does it mean by old here? It's really talking about their physical state. So Isaac is old and can't see, and so he calls Esau. Esau comes in and says, "Here I am." And so verse 2, Isaac says, "Behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death." So he's already looking forward. He's already looking forward to his death. He's thinking about it. He thinks it's kind of close. He's saying, "I don't know when I'm going to die." So he says, "Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out into the field, and make me some venison, and make me savory meat such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die." So Isaac's basically saying here, look, I'm old. I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't know what day that's going to be. So I want to bless you before that happens. So why don't you go out and hunt down some venison for me, make it the way that I like, bring it in, and I'll bless you. Hey, Carolyn, welcome aboard. And so he does. But Rebekah overhears, verse 5, Rebekah heard when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. So Esau's going to go out. He's going to be gone for a little bit. Hey, Arthur, welcome aboard. And Rebekah acts quickly, and she speaks to Jacob, says, "Behold, I heard your father speak unto Esau your brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that I may eat, and bless thee before Jehovah before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee." So she's like, listen up, do this real quick. Go now to the flock and fetch me from there 2 good kids of the goats, so two young goats, which I guess are close enough to deer meat to mimic it. And I will make them savory meat for your father, such as he loves. And you will bring it to your father, that he may eat, and he may bless thee before his death. So Rebekah's kind of sneaking Jacob in here to get the blessing, and that should be Esau's. And I have to wonder, as I'm reading this, and as I read through chapter 28, 29, and some of this, and I read some of the surrounding context, I have to wonder if Esau's wives that he got from the Hittites, from the Canaanites, that he, in doing that, he really kind of turned his parents against him. Because Rebekah, what motivation, other than Jacob is her favorite son, definitely. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Julie. But I have to wonder, because it keeps coming up, that Esau has these 2 wives that are Canaanites, and they're kind of a plague. Jacob's not even married yet, but we ended with Esau having these 2 wives from Canaan, and they were troublesome to both Isaac and Rebekah. So I wonder if that's part of Rebekah's thinking here, is like, look, I don't want Esau, who has been corrupted by these foreign women that are going to draw him away from Jehovah, I don't want them getting the blessing. And so I don't know, it doesn't say that in the text, but since it keeps coming up, it's part of that surrounding context. I have to wonder if that's not part of it. So, anyway, verse 11, and Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Remember, Esau means hairy. And my father peradventure will feel me, and shall seem to him as a deceiver, because that's what you'll be, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, upon me be thy curse, my son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. Hey, cousin. Hi, this might be our podcast. Cool. That would be fun. So, Jacob's saying, if I go in there, I am not like my brother physically, and even though father can't see me, he's gonna touch my arms once, or maybe the back of my neck once, or something like that. He's gonna feel that, yeah, mama's boy and a pretty boy. That's right. And he's gonna feel that I am not like my brother at all, and he's gonna know what's up, and he's gonna curse me. And Rebekah says, you know what? Whatever curse you get, I'll take it on me. Now, I don't know that much about curses and blessings and how all that's really supposed to work. I don't know how real they are unless they come from God. I know that if God blesses you or God curses you, then it's real and it's going to happen. But with all of this, all that honor stuff and all of that, hey, Rachel, how does it really, really work? I don't know. But, wow, cool. Lots of people getting on tonight. So, she says, I'll take the curse on me. And so, she says, you need to hurry up and go out there and get that stuff. So he went, it's not Corona, and fetched and brought them to his mother. And his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. So cooked it in the spices, cooked it up the way that he wanted. And, except it's goats, it's young goats, and it's not deer. So I guess it tasted much the same, just a slightly different meat. I don't know, honestly, unless it's like pork, which has a very distinct bacony taste to it, or obviously like bird meat, like chicken or turkey or something. Like I can't tell much of the difference between chicken and turkey if it's cooked and put into like a stew or a casserole or something like that. I don't know that I could tell the difference between cow and buffalo or something like that, some of those other red meats, honestly. So I could totally see where this would happen. For me, meat is about the spice and the flavor as much as anything. So I'm guessing this totally works, especially if he's an old man and his senses are going. So I get it. So hey Blake, welcome aboard. So it just says game in verse 7. So maybe the King James here. I didn't even think to look that up, Brian. You may be right there. Let's see, what does it say here? For venison, Said. And Said is venison, hunter, victuals, provision, hunting, catch, food. Yeah, so venison might just be wishful thinking on the translator's part for the King James. So that sounds right. So all right. So he goes out and gets some game. In that case, it wouldn't even matter what the meat was at that point. Hey, sweetheart, welcome aboard. So that makes it even easier to I guess fake it with the goats. So cool. Where am I at? I scrolled down some. All right, so, and Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. So she skins the goats, she keeps the fur part of it, and puts that on Jacob. So he's going to smell like Esau. Yeah, I thought you might be. And he's wearing his clothes, so he's going to have Esau smell on him that way. He's going to have the fur on him. It's going to feel like Esau, smell like he just hunted game and stuff like this. There's a whole bunch of things going into this deception here. So she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came to his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. So here we have Rebekah and Jacob in collusion, lie to Isaac to steal Esau's blessing. Ends do not justify the means. I am not in any way, and I don't think Moses is in any way condoning what's going on here or saying that what Jacob did is right or what Rebekah did is right. Nothing is said about their actions morally. That's not the point that Moses is writing about. Remember, Moses is writing about the origins of the Israelite nation. He's saying what is, and not talking so much about, well, Jacob really shouldn't have done that, but he's just explaining this is how things happen and why things happen the way they did. And so we don't have anything in this context that says that God condoned Jacob and Rebekah conspiring to lie to Isaac. There's nothing in this context. A lot of people who want to talk about the Bible and say that it's not true, that it can't be inspired of God, because here you have God condoning lying. That's not what's happening here. Moses is just recounting what's going on. You don't have anything about God condoning it at all. If we understand the way that the Bible was written, one of the big evidences that the Bible was an inspired history is that the people in it that are recorded in it, especially the ones that are writing about themselves, they write the good and the bad. They talk about how David was an adulterer, and Solomon had so many wives and concubines, and David was a murderer as well. You have Peter was a coward, and all of these different things are the real people. When you have somebody who's writing a history of the victor, like when we have the histories, we read about one nation over another, the nation that wins comes off looking like the good guys, like they couldn't do any wrong, and the bad guys are written as evil. And that's not to say that they aren't, but we have a different way that things are written. But the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible just writes people as they are, and we see their flaws as much or more than we see their awesomeness. In fact, I think that when you have so many flaws that are written about, like we see throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, people like Abraham really stand out. Abraham had his flaws, but they were few, and his righteousness and his dedication to God really stands out. So there's an interesting evidence here that the Bible is inspired because of that. Each one of Jacob's lies needed another lie. Yeah, so you're going to see this whole chain here that he builds on. And I think part of it is going to kind of come back in and kind of haunt him a little bit in some of the things that happened to him later on. So Jacob is crafty. There's no doubt about that. Some of the things that Jacob does later on, super crafty. He's not a stupid man at all. He's very, very, he's a survivor, and he's very clever. And so, we're gonna get into that as we see. And he is the one that is named Israel, which means he who wrestles with God. And so we're gonna see that. It totally bites him back. It does, especially in his relationship with Esau. So. All right, but back to the text. And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because Jehovah thy God brought it to me. Now here's an interesting phrase. Number one, he's lying. Yeah, Jacob definitely means supplanter. They're going to talk about that here in a minute. Jacob brings God into it. Says, Jacob provided, and I wonder how much of that comes off of what Isaac may have told his sons about his father, Abraham, and the whole sacrifice thing and God providing the sacrifice. So, not sure how much that plays into it, but he does say, because Jehovah thy God brought it to me. And another interesting thing here is you have the son of a man who is called the son of promise, the type pointing to Christ himself, is saying that, in a sense, he's saying that, or he's implying that Jehovah is not yet his God. And we're going to see in the next chapter that Jacob actually takes on the faith in Jehovah later. Hey, Jenny. We're in chapter 28 of Genesis, and we are around verse 21. But the point I want to make here with this is kind of an interesting one. We bring our children up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and we do our best to try to instill in them not only faith in God, but we also want to instill in them a love for studying the Word and dedication and all those things. I'm very grateful to my mom and dad for what they taught us. Very specifically, they taught my brothers and I to love to study and to question. Because one of the things that a child has to do is grow up. And when they grow up, their faith has to become their own faith. They have to reach a point where they start questioning, maybe even doubting to a point in some way or another. And they can no longer get to heaven. It's about not, you can't get to heaven on somebody else's faith. Like, I couldn't get to heaven on my dad's faith. Once I reached the age of accountability, I needed to start taking responsibilities for my own actions and really come to a personal, individual faith in God. And to do that, I had to ask the hard questions. I had to get to a point where and it's funny because my parents were always, I don't want to say on my case, but there was a little bit of the eye rolling. Oh, here goes Ernie into debate mode again. And I was challenging everybody. I wanted to debate everybody. And there's still a little bit of that in me. I'm just not as I guess vicious about it as I used to be. But there was this challenging phase that I went through, asking all of these hard questions, and I wanted to study every religion that was out there. I studied Hindu, and I studied Buddhism, and I studied Shintoism and Confucianism and Mormonism and Catholicism, and you name it. I was out there studying it, challenging myself, and a number of the things, even that my own faith taught, I challenged. And to this day, there are some things, some small things that are taught traditionally that I don't agree with. I don't think these things are necessarily something that would say that the faith that I belong to isn't one that like you could still be a part of the Church of Christ and believe those things and be okay, but you have this set of things that people have held on to, maybe denominational baggage, or maybe they've just studied it for themselves but haven't studied really deeply, or a friend of theirs believed it, or something. These things get brought in. And what I'm trying to say here is that Jacob's faith wasn't his own faith right now, and he eventually had to reach that point. And I think every individual person has to, at some point in their life, make their faith their own. And I think that we see a lot of people who leave faith in God because they don't do that, because they were never taught how to question, how to study. They weren't taught to love to study. They weren't taught how to deal with conflict. That's not COVID. They weren't taught how to be like Job and ask questions of God, or to be like the Bereans and challenge the things that were being taught, so that finding the answers, which the answers are all in the Bible, like every single one of them. I'm well past that challenging phase. Believe me, I my faith is my own and has been for a long time. Hey, Gabriel. So I think that if we teach our students, our children, junior high, high school, instead of sending them off to college, not having a clue how to deal with challenge, if we challenge them and we teach them how to deal with that challenge, then I think that we can send them off and not have to worry about them as much. So very thankful to my parents for doing that for me and for my brothers. Went to public school, went to public university, and we came through. I had a lot of professors that did not like me, especially my science professors did not like me too much, except for my physics professor. He was pretty cool because he was a young earth creationist like I was. A lot of my English professors, they just didn't like me because they would pose all these silly moral dilemmas and whatever. And because of how I was raised, because of how I was allowed to challenge, it was real easy to not just sit there and be sheeple about it. So, she up as irrational. Right, yeah, and you come out on the other side, Stephen. You're exactly right. You come out on the other side of it so much stronger in the faith when you do that. You come out. Your faith is now your own. You've owned it, and you are like 1,000 times stronger than when. And I'm not saying that having your parents' faith is a bad thing. You need that when you're very, very young. Hey, Tracy, but when you make that faith your own, it's yours. You've owned it. You are responsible for it, and whether it grows stronger or weakens is totally your choice. And so it's just, I don't know, it was a point that stuck out to me here that Jacob is saying by God, and he's not claiming ownership yet, but we're going to see that he does. So his relationship with God starts off kind of rocky, and then it I think it solidifies, and God does bless him, and God does honor what Isaac said here, even though that Jacob got it through deceit. So an interesting thing here about how God uses even things that aren't good for his purposes. So God can use anything and everything for his purposes. So he does this here. And I think too, part of that is because Esau has already corrupted himself with these Canaanite women. So, all right. Again, Genesis 28, we're in verse 21, or I'm sorry, 27. Genesis 27, and we are in verse 21. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. So Isaac's going to test like they thought he would. Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, Thy voice is Jacob's voice. But remember, his senses aren't all that great. But the hands are the hands of Esau. So maybe Isaac's thinking his hearing's not as great, just like his eyesight's gone out. And so he's like, all right, I feel you. You're Esau. And discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother's Esau's hands were. And so he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, by the way, that's alcoholic wine, just for those of you who are watching. Brought him wine to drink, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and Isaac did that as one final test. Hey, Shaylin, welcome aboard. And smells him. So he's felt him. He's kind of listened to him. He's eaten of the venison. So all these tests, Isaac kind of thinks something's up. But he smelled the smell of his raiment, and he blessed him and said, See, the smell of my son is the smell of the field which Jehovah hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curses thee, and blessed be he that blesses thee. So remember, Jacob already has Esau's birthright that Esau despised. Now God, or not God, Isaac is giving him the father's blessing, and part of that blessing is that Rebecca, that her sons and her grandsons, all of those that are not of Jacob, are going to serve Jacob. Well, this is where we get back into Romans 9 and the idea that the older will serve the younger. Esau never individually served Jacob. He was the older brother. He was a fierce, mighty man. There was no time that Esau actually served Jacob as individuals. But here in this blessing, and we see throughout the history of the Old Testament, and then Romans 9, the nations are what are in view here. And so Isaac, in this blessing, he says that basically the offspring or the descendants of Esau, which were the Edomites, would serve the Israelites. And so that's indeed what we see happen in history. So verse 30, and it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. So Jacob leaves, and right after that Esau comes in. And he also made savory meat, and brought it to his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac realizes, something's up. Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, and he said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before you came, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. So he gets it. He's like, who was that just was in here then? If this is you, and I've already blessed him, and I guess you can't take it back. Genesis 33. Yeah, we'll get there. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Jacob said he was Isaac's servant. Jacob. You mean Esau's? Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, Jacob said he was Esau's servant, and we see that individually. You're exactly right. Sorry, it took me a second to figure out what was going on. But yeah, we'll see that individually Jacob over and over again is serving Esau and is calling himself that. But we see later in the nations that flips. So verse 34, and when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Your brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away your blessing. So like I said, I guess you can't take it back. Once you give a blessing, you can't take it back. I'm learning the rules here of blessings and curses and all of that as I go through this, I guess. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. 2 times. No, that's cool. So that's what the name Jacob means, is supplanter. And he's like, isn't he rightly named? Because this is the second time he's done this to me. He took away. Now, remember, Esau's blaming Jacob here for the first time. But remember, Esau, it was totally Esau's fault the first time. Esau despised his birthright. He thought nothing of it. It was completely worthless to him. He would rather have stew instead. Esau's blaming Jacob for something that was really on Esau for the first time. But the second time is truly the supplanting of Esau, because Jacob does come in with subtlety. So, but here it says that he supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. You gave it away. And behold, now he taketh away my blessing. Fair point. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? So I think the question was asked the last time, wasn't the birthright and the blessing the same thing? And here we know that the birthright and the blessing are 2 different things. The birthright's like the physical inheritance. The blessing is kind of as you go forward, and you and your descendants, these are the things that are going to happen, and you'll have great things and wonderful things happen, and whatever. That's what the blessing is. But the birthright is the actual physical inheritance, like what we saw with the prodigal son and his brother. So, but anyway, Esau's like, well, do you have anything left for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And that brethren there is kinsmen. That's not the specific term, like I have 3 brothers. The brethren is talking about all of his kinsmen. So Jacob has basically been made the patriarch after Isaac passes. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. What shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So Esau's really, really upset about this. It's like he's getting nothing from his father at all. Yeah, it is toasty. I did have the window open, but moths tend to come up. So, anyway, Isaac kind of searches his mind, and I kind of, I'm seeing here a little bit of Sleeping Beauty, and the way the dark fairy comes in and gives like a really bad curse, and then one of the good fairies comes along and kind of reverses it just a little bit. That's the vibe I get here. Sorry for bringing in evil Disney on that, but that's just the thing that's stuck in my head. But Isaac does give him something. Verse 39, he says, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, your dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. So kind of the same thing. He's going to have the same thing in terms of the land and stuff that Jacob had. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, which is, hey wife. So that's part of what Jacob got as a blessing. But here's the kind of the reversal of it a little bit. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion. And I had to look at the ESV for this, is that when you grow restless, when the yoke becomes too burdensome, that you shall break his yoke from off thy neck. Now again, Esau doesn't ever serve Jacob. So what is being talked about here is not that Esau is going to grow restless under his brother's yoke, but the descendants of Esau, the Edomites, would eventually break the yoke or break the servitude with the Israelites, and we definitely see that happen. This is prophesying forward, and remember, these guys are patriarchs. Abraham is a patriarch. Isaac is a patriarch. These guys are in direct contact with Jehovah. And so the things that they're saying are prophecies. They're just like Job. They're the one that goes to God on behalf of the whole family to worship God, to bring the petitions before God, kind of like we see the high priest in the days after Moses and the Israelites are set up as a nation under the Levitical priesthood. So when Isaac is saying this, he's speaking prophetically. His blessing isn't just this random thing that he's being very specific, and the things that he says come true. And it's not until thousands or hundreds of years later, from the time of Abraham to the time of Christ is about 1,600 years. So we're talking centuries and centuries and centuries before Isaac is saying this stuff is going to happen. So I thought that was pretty cool. Just an understanding of where Abraham and Isaac and these patriarchs fit into the whole scheme of things. So. All right, verse 41, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Everybody thinks Isaac's going to die. He lives for how many decades longer? But, okay. The days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. So he's going to wait till Isaac dies, and then he's going to kill his brother. Surprise. It doesn't happen the way that Esau has it planned out. And these words of Esau, her elder brother, were told to Rebekah. So I guess a servant tells Rebekah, what Esau said. Maybe he's throwing a tantrum. People don't pay attention to servants, I guess. And so Rebekah hears about it. So she sends and calls Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, your brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee thou to Laban my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him. Remember, Laban was the guy that met the servant of Abraham after the servant came looking for Rebekah, looking for a wife for Isaac. So now she's like, go to Laban, go to my brother to Haran, and tarry with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away. A few days. Hebrews 12:17, for you know that afterward, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. This shows how the Calvinists missed the point. They think Esau wasn't able to repent because he found no place for it, though he sought it with tears. Genesis 27 clearly reveals that repentance Esau was seeking, could not find, was Isaac's change of mind toward who would receive the blessing, not his own penitence toward sin. Absolutely. Yeah, context, man. Context totally matters. Esau is not repenting of his rebellion against God or his lack of faith in God. He is repenting of he's trying to change Isaac's mind. Is what he's trying to do, and Isaac won't do it. So anyway, Rebekah's telling Jacob, "Hey, go hang out with your uncle Laban for a few days until your brother's not mad anymore, and because he will kill you." This is Esau. They knew that he would carry out the thing that he had promised to do. So until thy brother's anger turned away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him, then I will send and fetch thee from there. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? Now that's interesting. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? So, hey Tina, welcome aboard. We're at the very end of 27. We're about to head into 28. So, why would she say that she would be deprived of both of them in the same day? Granting that Esau killed Jacob here if he didn't flee, in what way would Esau be lost? Well, it's my understanding is that if Esau killed Jacob, then in contrary, he doesn't have a blessing, he doesn't have a birthright, and if his sin is such that do they have to execute those who have committed murder? Would Esau have to be put to death for it? What specifically is happening here? Is this just a matter of Isaac and Rebekah saying, you killed your brother, we're not gonna have anything more to do with you? So it's interesting the way that she says it. I don't know that there's an answer. I don't know what she's thinking here specifically because the Bible doesn't say. But she's talking about both of them dying in one way or another in the same day. So, yes, right, Brian. That's what I'm thinking. Is there may have been a law against murder? Obviously, Cain and Abel, something that would have been handed down, and likely that probably would have been the case. Although, with him being angry or whatever, we would probably term this manslaughter or crime of passion, not first degree murder, where it's like thought out or whatever. So maybe that's what Rebekah's thinking here is that if Esau does kill Jacob, that Esau would have to be executed. So not sure. Like I said, the Bible doesn't say, so we can't know for sure. Hey, Tiffany. So we'll just have to see, I guess, one day we can ask God about it. What was Rebekah really thinking? Not the top of my priority list for questions, but, when you're in eternity, Right. Yeah, that's totally the possibility. Mom saying that she would lose both of her sons, one to murder and one to exile. Again, the penalty for Esau killing Jacob, something would happen to Esau, and it would be like both of them died. Whether Esau would have to be physically put to death or exiled, as Mom said, like Cain was, she would lose both of her sons in that same point in time because of the same act. So anyway, verse 46, Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. Those are the wives of Esau. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? So she's starting to think about Esau's wives, and she's doing this in the context of Rebecca's real smart. She's already helped Jacob get the blessing, and now she's like, all right, I gotta send Jacob to my brother. What can I do to get Isaac to go along with this without having to tell Isaac, hey, your older son wants to kill your younger son? Because he's an old man, don't want to burden him with that. So she's like, the wives are they're a burden to us. Neither one of us like him. So we can get Jacob, who's not married, to go there and look for a wife, and that'll be the excuse we'll use to get him away from Esau. So that brings us to 28. And I'm guessing that Rebekah tells Isaac this plan. And so Isaac calls Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, You shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. So he's going to marry a cousin. He actually marries two cousins. Again, not a problem until Leviticus 18. And I'm not even sure, I'll have to go back and look. I'm not even sure if first cousins are condemned by Leviticus 18. I know that sister, brother, mother, father, and maybe aunt and uncle, those are kind of forbidden, but I'm not sure how far out the restriction goes. I haven't read it in a while, so I'll have to go back and look at that. But he's gonna go there and he's gonna find a cousin to marry. This is actually a very prominent way of doing things during medieval times, all the way up through the Renaissance, especially for royalty, as they would intermarry because they did not want to mix royal blood with commoner blood. And even today, when everybody's gaga over the British royal family, I couldn't care one whit less than I do now about them in terms of what's going on over there. But it's a big deal that the princes are all marrying these commoners, and even what's her name, Megan or something, is an American, and they're marrying these girls and they're commoners. But that's been kind of frowned on for a long time. So it's not that uncommon for humans to marry close within their family, especially for royalty. So it's not that big of a new factor. Marrying a cousin at this point, we're still got people living 200 years, still not fully seeing that full genetic degradation and stuff to where it's that big of a deal. But I think God kind of gets the Israelites ahead of the game compared to the other nations when he puts the injunction against it there in Leviticus. So, all right, verse 3, And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people, and give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. So part of this is Isaac has already given his personal blessing, but he's not stepping in and filling the role of God and giving him the big blessing that God gave to Abraham and then personally gave to Isaac as well. He's saying, I hope God gives you, and I'm thinking God's going to give you the same blessing that he gave us, because you are our descendant and you are the one that is supposed to carry on this line. And so that's kind of what Isaac is saying. He's like, go find a wife from our homeland, not from these Canaanite people that God doesn't really favor too much. Go back home, get you a wife from Laban, from your uncle, and then God will bless you the same way that he blessed your grandfather and I. And so verse 5, Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother, just in case you aren't sure about the relationship. We had to cover all that again. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from there, and that he blessed him, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge saying, "You shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan," and that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother and was gone to Padan Aram. Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then Esau went to Ishmael and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. So Esau's got 2 wives already, these Canaanite girls, and he realizes that those girls are not acceptable to Isaac and Rebekah. And so he's like, well, maybe they want somebody that's a little bit closer to the family. And so he marries somebody that's descended from Ishmael, and trying to, I guess, fix the problem or get in good with his parents by marrying somebody who would be acceptable. So El Shaddai, with a footnote, Achab relating to the heel Jacob gripped. Okay, so you're talking about verse 3? I'm not sure what you're referencing there, Brian. So anyway, so he takes this wife, and Jacob went out, and it just states that. It doesn't tell us really much about the outcome right yet. It just says that's why were they unacceptable, Rachel. So we read in earlier chapters that God had told Abraham, do not let Isaac have a wife of the Canaanites, because the Canaanites were people that worshipped foreign gods, these pagan gods, I call fake gods, like Baal and Ashtoreth, the Sumerian gods, and all that. And God wanted Isaac to not be corrupted by these Canaanite people that were in the land that God, pagan. The idea is that they were people who, like Romans 1 talks about worshiping the creation rather than the creator. And so that's kind of what that is. But it's these gods that mankind invented. They're limited. They're not real. They don't have any real power. The Egyptian gods, like Set and Ishtar, the Roman gods like Zeus and or Jupiter, I guess, would be Roman. Zeus would be Greek. And then you have the Phoenician god Ashtoreth, which eventually became Easter under the Romans, and just all of these gods that people make up to worship because they want something to worship, and I guess they either don't know about or reject the creator of everything. And so that's what he's saying. And so Isaac, knowing that God had said that, and Kimberly had said that about him to Abraham, Isaac allows Rebekah to rightly convince him to the same thing. Says, hey, don't let him marry a Canaanite. Don't let Jacob marry a Canaanite. Plus, Esau's already married 2 Canaanites, and they're nothing but trouble. And so Rebekah kind of rolls that all together and says that Jacob needs to go get a wife from Padan Aram instead of down here in Canaan. So yeah, and a lot of the fake gods had prostitution associated with their worship. A lot of them did. Ashtoreth was the goddess of warfare and fertility. Easter, which is a later iteration. Easter, Ishtar, all of those iterations of Ashtoreth, all about fertility. And so Venus, Aphrodite, was all about that. So definitely that's a big part of it. So anyway, Rachel, that's why they sent Jacob up north. So I hope that answers the question. So thank you, Brian. That's a great point that you made. All right, verse 10. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and laid down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set upon the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, Jehovah stood above it, and said, I am Jehovah God of Abraham thy father, and God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Hi, Aunt Sherry. Welcome aboard. Yeah, exactly, Stephen. So, in this dream, remember now, Jacob hasn't fully claimed faith in Jehovah the way that Isaac has. It's still, it's still your God, or the way that he's talking about it. So Jehovah comes to him in a dream and blesses him and says that I will bless you the way that I blessed Abraham and the way that I blessed Isaac, and through you all the nations of the world would be blessed. So that's the promise again. We see this over and over and over again. What was the promise? The focus of the promise to these men was that through them all the people of the earth would be blessed. Not just their own descendants, but everybody would be blessed. Well, we know that that's Jesus. That Jesus was the fulfillment of that blessing. So what was the purpose of the Israelite nation? The whole purpose of the Israelite nation was the vehicle to fulfill that promise. That's all tied in to this promise now that has been made to these three generations of men, that through their seed, through the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, would come a blessing to all of the world. That is the entire purpose of the Israelite nation. And God preserved them as a nation until they fulfilled that promise, until they fulfilled the blessing that God gives to Jacob here. And we see Moses is trying to point that out. Remember, this is all being written during that 40 years of wandering. He's pointing out to the Israelites, this is why you exist as a nation. And they didn't really get it. And so verse 15, behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. So exactly, Stephen, you're exactly right. The end of the promise here is that God would stay with Jacob, and he would stay with Jacob's descendants, and he would be with them, and he would preserve them until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. What did he speak to him of? Blessing all of the families of the world, all of the people of the planet would be blessed through them. And God says, I'm going to stay with you until that time. Well, that time came. Jesus came into the world. And what did the descendants of Jacob do? They murdered the Messiah. And at that point, God's promise was fulfilled. It was completed. It was done to the 100%. And there wasn't any reason left for the Israelites to remain as a separate nation. Now, think of what would have happened. Just a kind of what if here for a moment. What if Israel had been faithful to God, and let's say that Jesus came in, the Israelites all as a whole nation followed after Jesus, and ended up being that the Romans put Jesus to death because he taught against emperor worship and all that was going on. What if the Romans had been the ones to kill him? What would have been the end of Israel as a nation? They still would have fulfilled their purpose, and there wouldn't have been any more reason for Israel as a nation to be a separate and apart nation. They would have then had to have obeyed the gospel just like everybody else. And so their purpose is stated explicitly right here, and the promise is very explicit that God gives, that I will be with you until I've done all that I've spoken unto thee. Not all of them. What, Brian? You'll have to expand on that. I'm not sure what. Are you talking about? Not all of them killed Jesus or whatever. Never realized verse 15 until about 2 months ago. Yeah, it knocks you right on the floor, right? So it's a hard verse to get around, because God is very specific about how long he is going to be with the Israelite nation, how long he was going to bless them and keep them as a separate and a holy. Well, okay, so Brian, yes, you're right. Not all of them participated in the murder of Jesus or called for it, but Mary obviously didn't. Mary Magdalene was there. John was there. The apostles obviously were not involved in that. So in a specific sense, yeah, we certainly have a few that were not involved. But when you look at Acts 2:38, what happens, or not 2:38, but Acts 2, what does Peter preach? He's preaching to Pentecost, the Israelite nation at Pentecost, and he charges these people come from all over. They probably are not even really all that aware of who or what happened with Jesus, but these people have come from all over, and he preaches to them, and he says, you are the ones that have killed him. And so he charges the Israelite state, the Jewish state, with the murder of Jesus. And that's where you have the 3,000 souls were saved that day, because they're like, what do? We killed the Messiah. And Peter tells them. So in terms of the nation or the Jewish state or whatever, absolutely. It was the leadership. It was Herod wanted to kill him when he was a baby. And then the Sanhedrin was involved. King Herod was involved in his trials. The whole political engine that represented the Israelite nation was involved in that. So yes, specifically there were a few Jews that were not, but as a whole nation, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen, post it up. Definitely. But we're going to see time and time again that as a whole, as a group, the nation of Israel. No, you're fine. Go ahead and post it up. But as a nation, God very clearly states things like this over and over again. Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 32, pretty much every major and minor prophecy out there, all of that. So yeah, there's no theocracy of Israel today. That is exactly right. So anyway, back to the text, verse 16, and we're almost done here. Jacob awakened out of his sleep and said, surely Jehovah is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place. That word dreadful, it doesn't necessarily have a bad connotation. We're reading the King James here. But the idea about dreadful is like awe. It's like if we come up on the Grand Canyon for the first time and you're like, oh, wow, look at just, this place is so, you're kind of afraid of falling off the edge there if you're standing at the top of it, but it's so majestic and so awe-inspiring. So that's the word dreadful here, is what the King James says. I think the ESV actually says awesome. So keep that in mind. Let's see, did I miss... Ashley asked a question. Going back to prostitution of other religions, wasn't there temple prostitution, and what about Judah and Tamar? So Judah and Tamar we will have to get to when I get there, because that's later in this. But yes, temple prostitution, that was absolutely part of the religions. Sorry I missed your question, Ashley. Got to reading too much of my own text here. But yeah, during the first century, Dinah had it, Aphrodite had it, Venus, whichever one you want to pick. Most of them had what they called vestigial virgins, and all kinds of stuff. So definitely. So, all right. And he was afraid, and how awesome is this place? This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And remember, Jacob is speaking here. He's saying things. Just because he's saying them doesn't make them true. It's just what he thinks of the place. And so he rose up early in the morning, took the stone that he had put for his pillow, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. If you remember, Bethel is Abraham had already dwelt here. It was all the way back in chapter 12 or 13, and whenever he was first called out, he dwells here for a little while. And this is where he gets the blessing for the first time. But Bethel just means house of God. So anything you see the word El on the end of it, El is the singular form of Elohim, which is that idea of just God or deity. So anyway, he called the name of the place Bethel, which means house of God, but the name of that city was called Luz at the first. So they called it Luz, but later it changed its name to Bethel. So Kimberly, I teach 7th grade. My students are lost and scared. You teach 7th grade. You're talking about Bible class, Kimberly, or are you talking about like regular 7th grade in the public school system? So, verse 20, and Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Jehovah be my God. So here's the point where Jacob is now taking on the faith of his father as his own.
Good girl.
He's saying, all right, up to this point, it's been Isaac's God, but now he's come to me directly, and he's given me this blessing. And he makes a vow, if God will protect me and God will bring me back to my father's house in peace after I do this wife thing, then I'll follow him and he'll be my God. And so verse 22, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. Now here is the first we read of a 10th or a tithing. Before that, we don't read anything about it. So you have just this kind of precursor to the tradition that eventually Moses codifies in the Israelite nation as law. And they gave way more than a 10th. It wasn't just a 10th. Once you add it all up, it's a huge amount. But here's the first we read of it. And so Jacob is like, I'm gonna go to my uncle's house. I'm gonna get me a wife. God's said he's going to bless me, but if he can bring me all the way back to my father's house after I get my wife and bring me back there peacefully, he definitely has his brother in mind here, then Jehovah is going to be his God, and he will serve him and worship him. So now that's cool. Kimberly, if you don't mind, then we can talk about it later. I don't even mind giving you a phone call and chatting if you'd like to do that. Put your mind at ease on some of this stuff that's going on. But I'm about to wrap up the Genesis study here, and we can talk about that in a different form if that's okay. So yeah, a 10th. The ESV says a full 10th. So I'm guessing here there's like a kind of a ceremonial tie to this idea of the 10th of everything that I have. And not just a 10th of this or that or whatever. So anyway, that's 2 chapters tonight in the can, as they say. Thank you guys for joining. Had a lot of people on tonight, a lot of great questions, a lot of great points made. I really appreciate the participation, and I really love doing this. We get more and more every night that join us, so very excited. I'm going to try to be fairly consistent about the 9:30 time period. I'll continue to put up an announcement. Some nights I don't do it because other things are going on or whatever, but really appreciate everybody coming on board tonight. And I'm probably going to put up on YouTube in kind of chunks, because it takes a lot to get geared up to put it on YouTube. But then once I'm geared up, and I can put a bunch of videos on pretty rapidly, and so I'll probably do it in chunks. So anyway, thank you all, and look forward to more of this in the coming nights. Y'all have a good night.